Go to bed tonight, there's something that you need to check. It might just save your life. I recall waking up suffocating and drenched in sweat. I was 8 years old, and I had one of those nights where I just couldn't sleep. The room was scorching hot, and I'd spent the whole day inside eating popsicles and watching TV. There was this weird buzzing in my ears, and my whole body felt twitchy, like it was punishing me for spending the day on the couch. Worst of all was my pillow. It had never been this lumpy before. The case had gotten sweaty right away, and then it was immediately wet again after I turned it over. No matter how much I tossed and turned, I just couldn't get comfortable. But this wasn't just because of the summer heat. Finally, I got up and walked past my little sister's room and walked downstairs, where my dad was watching baseball. Seeing me, he muted it and asked if I needed anything. I shrugged. My pillow sucks, that's all. He nodded, then he got this weird smile and said, "Maybe it's Mr. Pillow." My dad has always been a goofball. When my mom had left when my sister Madison and I were little, he had stepped up in a big way, loving us double. He was always the one to tell us stupid ghost stories on camping trips about demon-possessed deer or bears who loved the smell of girls' shampoo. And then of course he'd come rattle the tent in the middle of the night and scare us out of our minds. "I'm just going to get some water and then head back to bed," I said. I looked over at the TV. The Brewers were losing by like 8 runs, so maybe he was trying to distract himself. "He was a real creep," said my dad, ignoring me. Of course he wasn't called the Mr. Pillow back then. I think his name was Douglas something. He loved sneaking into kids' rooms and then strangling them to death. "Thanks for that," I said, pouring myself a glass of water. "That's definitely going to help me sleep." "Of course they caught him eventually," said my dad. "Big trial and everything, but before he ever got convicted, his cellmates suffocated him to death with a pillow." "Got it," I said. I turned to the fridge and found some leftover pizza. Then I carefully started picking off the pepperoni as my dad continued. "The weird thing came the next night," said my dad. "He told me that they found the cellmate dead too, suffocated. Except there'd been no one in the cell to do the deed. Now I know what you're thinking. It was probably the guards, right? Maybe. But then other people started dying. Other prisoners who'd messed up Douglas, all suffocated in their beds. That's when they started calling him Mr. Pillow." "Ooh," I scoffed. "So spooky." I wasn't believing this for a second. "And then kids in the neighborhood near the prison started dying too." He said the moms would come in and find them dead in their beds. The only thing linking the deaths was that some of the kids had mentioned being uncomfortable in their beds the night before, asking if their parents had switched out the pillows. It can happen to anyone. My dad's face was blank. He wasn't blinking. "Dad," I said, "this is the dumbest thing ever. Just stop." And then in the morning they'd find the kids' old pillows stashed away somewhere, and on the bed there'd be no pillow at all, like it had just disappeared. I didn't even acknowledge that last part. I just hit the bathroom and walked up to bed. Soon enough, I heard the sounds of the baseball game come back on the TV as my dad unmuted it. Then, as I approached my room, I heard footsteps and the creak of a window. I walked inside and looked at my bed. I was missing both of my pillows. The window was open a crack, and I ran over to it. It was dark and rainy outside, and I didn't see anyone out there. Finally, I closed the window, making sure it was locked tight. "Dad," I called out. "This isn't funny." No response. My heart was beating about 1,000 beats a minute. I walked over to my closet and opened it. Inside, I saw my usual pillow sitting on the floor. I screamed and ran